A baby appears, but there was no pregnancy. A healing takes place, but was the sickness ever real? A pastor claims to hold divine power, but behind the scenes, something isn't adding up. They called it a miracle. A sign from God. Proof of divine intervention. But what if it was the perfect crime? For years, desperate followers placed their faith in men who claimed to be messengers of God. But were these so-called miracles real? Or were they nothing more than carefully staged illusions designed to deceive the faithful? Are these pastors performing divine wonders, or are they masterminding the biggest religious scam of all time? Faith is powerful. But so is deception. And sometimes, the two walk hand in hand. This is the power of belief. A force so strong it can make people see what isn't there, feel what isn't real, and trust what should never be trusted. Why do people trust so blindly? What makes someone hand over their last dollar to a preacher who promises wealth in return? Why do so many believe in miracles, even when there's no proof? The answer lies in the human brain, and the way it can be manipulated. Faith is powerful. It can inspire. It can heal. But it can also blind. Throughout history, people have been willing to follow religious leaders without question, no matter what they say, no matter what they demand. Why? Because when someone truly believes, logic takes a back seat. And the more they invest, emotionally, spiritually, financially, the harder it is to accept that they've been deceived. And this isn't just theory. This has happened. Again and again. And the stories are chilling. Meet Pastor X. He told his followers God had blessed him with the power to heal. That he could cure disease. Fix broken lives. And people believed him. They emptied their wallets, desperate for miracles. And then there was Prophet Y. He claimed women in his church were chosen by God to bear divine children. He told them to obey him completely, that questioning his authority was questioning God himself. But behind closed doors, the truth was far more sinister. And yet, even after these men were exposed, some of their followers still refused to believe it. Why? The answer lies within the brain itself. When people experience what they believe to be a miracle, their brains flood with dopamine, the same chemical responsible for pleasure, addiction, and euphoria. This isn't just faith. This is biology. The power of belief can be so strong that it physically alters what we feel, what we see, what we hear. It can make a sick person believe they are healed, even if nothing has changed. But if faith alone can heal, what happens when that faith is exploited? Meet Mary. A lifelong believer. She gave her life savings to a pastor who promised her riches beyond her imagination. Sow a seed, he said, and God will open the floodgates of heaven. But the flood never came. How many others have suffered like Mary? How many have given everything, and received nothing? What do you think? Is faith a source of strength, or has it become a tool for control? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, we're reading every single one. And don't forget to subscribe. A crippled man walking again, a blind woman seeing for the first time, a cancer patient instantly healed. But what if it was all an act? Because in many cases, it is. What you see on stage is only half the story. Behind closed doors, many of these so-called miracles are carefully scripted performances, designed to manipulate emotions and empty wallets. But how do they do it? How do they convince thousands, even millions, that what they're seeing is real? It all comes down to illusion, psychology, and deception. Step 1. The pre-planted actors. They are not strangers seeking healing. They are carefully chosen performers, trained to receive miracles on cue. And yet, somehow, no one in the audience notices. But if it's all fake, why do people believe it? Why do they feel healed, even when nothing has changed? Because this isn't faith, it's theater. And every illusion needs the right tricks to sell the performance. 1. The leg lengthening hoax. This is one of the oldest in the book. The truth? The leg was never shorter. The pastor simply tilted the shoe to create the illusion of change. And yet, thousands fall for it every year. Divine intervention? Or just good sleight of hand? 2. Hidden earpieces feeding miracle information. It seems like divine insight, but in reality, it's just a hidden earpiece. Before the service, church staff gather information from prayer request cards or casual conversations. That data is fed into a tiny earpiece, allowing the pastor to read minds like a psychic scam artist. A miracle? Or just a really good script? 3. Psychological priming before the service. Ever wonder why these miracles always happen in the same high-energy environments? That's because before the show even begins, the audience is primed, mentally and emotionally, so that when the pastor finally steps up, they're already on the edge of belief. And in that state, anything can feel real. And that's the tragedy. Because in the end, the real victims aren't the skeptics, but the believers. What do you think? If someone feels better, even if the miracle is fake, does that make it okay? Comment yes or no below. Faith is supposed to bring hope, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon. Some call it faith, others call it the perfect business model. And this isn't just a one-time scandal. Across the world, so-called men of God have been caught running multi-million-dollar scams, preying on their followers' trust and desperation. Take this pastor, for example, once hailed as a prophet, now exposed as a con artist. For years, he demanded that followers tithe 10%, 20%, even 50% of their income. Promising supernatural returns. Promising that God himself would reward their faith. But there was no divine reward. No miracle wealth. Just an empty bank account, and a preacher laughing all the way to the bank. Why is it that some religious organizations bring in millions, even billions, yet pay no taxes? Where does all that money really go? In many cases, these places of worship aren't just spiritual centers. They're money machines. And the people running them? They've turned faith into a business empire. How it works: 1. Tax loopholes. Since religious organizations are tax-exempt, their income isn't regulated like a normal business. That means millions of untaxed dollars. 2. Fake charities. Money is supposed to go to good causes, but in many cases, it simply disappears. 3. Guilt-based marketing. The more desperate the followers, the more they're pressured to sow a financial seed to receive a miracle. But when does a church stop being a place of worship and start being a criminal enterprise? And sometimes, the cost of blind faith isn't just money. It's lives. Across the world, there are churches that forbid medical treatment. They preach that faith alone will heal sickness, that seeking a doctor is a sinful lack of trust in God. But when prayer replaces medical care, people die. Innocent people. Children. But the truth always comes out. One by one, these so-called prophets are being exposed. One by one, they fall. What do you think? Should government step in and regulate churches, or would that violate religious freedom? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. You might think this was all in the past. That after so many scandals, people would wake up. That these religious scams would stop. But what if I told you, it's not just still happening. It's evolving. Getting smarter. And spreading faster than ever. Every year, new names rise to power. New prophets emerge, claiming to hear directly from God. New followers, desperate for hope, fall into the same trap. And the cycle repeats. Meet the millionaire prophet. He tells his followers that God rewards faith with wealth. That if they give everything, rent money, retirement savings, even loans, they'll receive a financial miracle. And yet, the only person getting rich is him. But what if I told you the biggest religious scam is happening on your phone right now? The formula is simple. The more shocking the miracle, the more viral it goes. And with every view, every donation link, every buy holy water now scam, these so-called prophets get richer. And yet, thousands still believe. Why? And if you think it's bad now, just wait. Because the next generation of religious scams? They won't even need real people anymore. With AI, anyone can be made to look like they're performing miracles. A preacher can be filmed saying anything. And people won't be able to tell what's real, and what's a perfect illusion. The next great religious deception? It might not come from a man. It might come from a machine. For those who dare to leave? The consequences are devastating. We've seen it happen again. And again. And again. But now, I ask you, will it ever stop? Or are we doomed to repeat the same mistakes forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Is this faith? Or is this fraud? You've seen the illusions, the deception, the pain left in their wake. But now, it's your turn to decide. This wasn't just one case. This wasn't just one con artist, one church, one miracle turned lie. No, there are hundreds more just like it. And they are still out there. Right now. From the streets of small towns to the grand stages of stadiums. From private YouTube streams to TikTok lives raking in cash by the second. From faith healers promising the impossible to televangelists sitting on billions. The machine never stops. Different faces. Different languages. But the same words. The same promises. The same manipulation. And the real cost? It isn't measured in dollars, but in lives destroyed. Families torn apart. People losing everything. Some losing their lives. And yet, they keep believing. But what if I told you, this is just the beginning? There's another case. One even darker. More twisted. More dangerous than anything we've covered today. We've shown you the evidence. We've exposed the truth. But now, it's up to you. What do you believe? Was this faith, or was it fraud? Tell us in the comments below. And if you think this was wild, wait until you see what we uncovered next. Because the next story might just change everything you thought you knew.